This session, we're going to talk about something that people really, really struggle with. And that's this concept of following your own path, being true to who you really are, and also knowing where you're going, right? If you talk with people who are really struggling with like their life, often they're like, I just don't know what I'm about. I don't know what I should focus on. I don't know what I should do. And this is true even for high-performing people, right? Even exceptionally amazing people. Like, I'll give you my wife, right? This last year, my wife sold her exercise studios. So she had spent 8 years building up this incredible business where we had 2 exercise studios in the Pacific Northwest. It was every hour of her day. It was her passion. She built community. She had her methodology. She had her team. She had over 30 employees. I mean, she was like amazing. Right? And then she sold the studios to have more freedom because running the boxes they call it, was like tiring because if someone didn't show up in the morning, she got the call at 4 a.m. for the 6 a.m. class. If somebody didn't, get something done, she had to step in. And for her, she decided that she wanted to travel more and we wanted to go more places. So we ultimately decided to sell the studios. She sold the studios. And then it was like a period of months of what I call decompression, right? If you have been high performing for a long time and then it stops, you're kind of like, okay, what now? And that happens for people when, for example, their kids leave the house. You've been mom for 18 years or super dad for 18 years, and then the house is empty and you start going, oh my gosh. Or you leave your job to pursue a new thing, but you don't exactly know how to do it yet. Moments of transition can cause a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of internal chaos that hurts our wellness. Make sense? Like if you're unclear, uncertain, or really kind of like lost, how does that affect your well-being, right? You don't feel well, you feel lost. You don't feel like you're being your best, you feel like you're being what? That's why we're gonna do this session. Because I think it's really important that you understand that psychological clarity in our life is directly tied to our wellness. It's directly tied to how we feel about ourselves, how we treat other people, how we show up in the world, the things that we've been talking about so far in this course. So I'm really pumped about this session because as a high performance coach, it's almost always the number one thing we have to go to is clarity. And I'm going to give you some tools and some frameworks and some simple daily practices to lock that in. Because here's the deal. I want you to feel so good about who you are, how you're showing up, and where you're going that you do have energy for the day. That you are just like instinctually like driven every day because you know what you're about and where you're going. And that is a major, major accomplishment for most people. I want you to have that in your life at some point. And not everyone has it. And sometimes we have it, like my wife had it, and then loses it for a time in decompression or in transition. And then you find it again, and life lights up again. And I want you to know that that's possible. It happened for my wife when she started finding her way again. It happened with me when I left a corporate job to become an entrepreneur, to write books, to be an influencer. Like, I didn't know how. And in those moments of transition, when you feel lost, man, those are some of the most important times for you to focus on your wellness. When you do that right, because one of the easiest ways to see a person in turmoil in life, one of the easiest indications of mental like struggle or real like health issues is when people don't handle transition well. And the reason most people don't handle transition well is because in those moments of transition, they're waiting. They're waiting for the purpose to fall. And I always say, it's not like you walk out your door one day and the piano of purpose falls on you and go, oh, this is what I should do. But because they're waiting, what happens? They become reactive in their life. Because they're waiting in their life, what happens? They take less initiative. Because they take less initiative, what happens? They feel less momentum in their life. When you feel less momentum in your life, you get what? Less progress in your life. Less progress in your life, what happens? You start to feel like you're not contributing or living forward. What happens? You feel less happy. You feel less connected. You feel like you're not contributing. And your overall wellness starts to fall like a house of cards. Simply because in moments of transition, or when it really mattered the most, You didn't get clear. You didn't set the intentions proactively. And that's what happens. People wait, and then they wait and they're 30, and then they wait and they're 40, and then they wait and they're 50, and then they wait and they're 70, and they're like, I never really lived my life, Brendon. And I don't want that for you. And if that's true for you now, I just cheer you on and go, hey man, it's okay. Hey girl, you're okay. You're just in transition right now. So what's our way through? How are we going to take care of our well-being? We're going to be more intentional. How are we going to flip the script? We're going to write the next chapter now. How are we going to feel better? We're going to set those daily practices that develop clarity for us. Here's a really fascinating statistic. When we did our study of the world's highest performing people in all walks of life, the first and the highest correlation of all the habits we measured over 100 different performance variables in like how they show up. Remember, high performance is really about long-term success while maintaining your well-being and positive relationships. And what we found out of 100 performance variables, we measured everything, right? This assessment we had people take took like 20 minutes of their time, and then we validated it against what was true in their life that we could measure from their peers or their performance or their revenue. Like, we really did the discipline to see the number one habit, the highest correlation that made high performers different than underperformers was their habit of seeking clarity. They were always seeking clarity. They were always asking, who should I be here? What do I need to know here? How should I treat people here? What's important here? What will bring me meaning here? They were asking questions more than underperformers. They were learning more actively than underperformers. They were setting the intention of who to be, what to do, how to treat other people, and what they were working on more than underperformers. The habit is called seek clarity. And that's what I'd like to talk to you about now. I got really curious about this. I didn't anticipate this to be. I thought like the number one habit of high performers would be something like, they're super productive. That is one of the habits, but the number one habit was seeking clarity. I thought it'd be like, well, they must be really creative people. Creativity didn't even measure in the top 10 of their habits. The number one habit, more important than anything else, was their tendency to seek clarity, both in unknown and in the known. And so here's what they would do. I started breaking it down. I did structured academic interviews with over 300 high performers worldwide. So first they'd have to be validated as a high performer in their field by external measures and an internal assessment they took. Then I did the interviews. And these interviews ranged from sometimes it could be a 10-minute interview, it could be a 3-hour interview, just depending on the sort of the focus of the interview. And the fascinating thing that I learned is the way that they all sought clarity was basically 4 ways. That if they could find clarity in these 4 unique areas of their life, they felt good. They felt confident. They felt like ready to go about the day. They felt like they were on their A game. But if you stripped away any of those 4 areas, man, it didn't matter how productive they weren't happy. It didn't matter how influential they weren't happy. It did not matter how much money they had or what their yoga practice level was, they weren't happy. So these areas, our goal in this session is to set intention in each of these 4 areas. So I want to make sure you download the worksheet that comes along with this course and you kind of fill out these squares with me and we take a good look at them and we do some good work. Okay? So 4 primary areas in seeking clarity. First area, so simple, so basic, you're almost gonna laugh. You're like, all that warm up, Brendon, for this first thing? And the first thing is high performers ask more often, who do I want to be in this situation? That's it. I wish it was fancy. I wish it was sexier. I wish I could say it in a way that sounded like it solved all the universe's problems. But they actually are more intentional about who they are. And they are trying to live into their best self. Remember, in the first session in this course, I talked about this concept in psychology called congruence. That if we are being congruent with the person we know we can be and should be, we tend to be happier. We tend to be psychologically, truly happier. Like mental health is directly tied to our sense of congruence. It's huge. Well, that's what it's kind of about. They're seeking clarity on who they should be in any given situation. So if you go to walk into a meeting, you're kind of thinking like, oh, who should I be in this meeting? Like before I film something like this, I'm like what Brendon is going to show up today for this filming? Because isn't it true you have different angles and different like personalities, and you have like you have different, like a different you might show up at like a party of 30 people versus like hang out with your one friend? Isn't it true we have like different sides of ourselves? Well, high performers tend to say like, well, how do I want to show up in this situation? Listen, it's context specific. They're really thoughtful. Because isn't it true, the way you show up for your daughter might be different than the way you show up for your spouse. Or the way you show up for your team lead is different than you show up for the intern. Does that make sense? It's like we show a different part of ourselves that's context related, and high performers go, okay, who do I need to be in this one? And this is very, very practical. I'll give you an example. I had the blessing to train a US Olympic athlete, and this person spoke to themselves and identified themselves differently when they went on a track with this one competitor who was always beating them versus this other competitor who wasn't. Like the people we're around affects how we talk to ourselves and think about ourselves. And I had to help this person rewire that. I'm like, oh, the way that you are going into this race isn't as intentional as it should be and as positive as it should be. Like you're not defining who you are in this race. You're being reactive, you're hoping to win, but you're not saying, I'm this person in this race right now. And that happens in our real life too, because guess what happens sometimes? You're in transition. Maybe you got divorced or a relationship broke up. What do people do? They wait, they hang out for the next relationship to then define them versus saying, who am I now without this relationship? Who do I want to be now without this person in my life? They fail to set that intention, and that also hurts who they are, because guess what? None of us want to be a reactive person just waiting to find out who we are. So I got to get you being proactive about discerning in every situation that matters in your life. When you go in, like, who am I going to be in this situation? There's a couple of simple tricks to doing this, okay? One is to set like a universal, ambitious intention for who you want to be by simply defining that in a couple words. So if you ever studied my work before, I always, with every audience I ever have the blessing to teach over a period of time, I always say, what I'd love for you to do is write out a list of words that describe the best of who you are. Like if I said, hey, give me 3 words that define the best of who you are, or 3 words that you want to grow into, what would those words be for you? And so I'll have people write down like 10, 15 different words, and they'll write kind or patience, or they'll write joyful, they'll write positive, they'll write, confident, or they'll write, giving, or they'll write all these words. And I'll say, okay, all those words, what are the 3 most important words? Like the ones, if those 3 words, those ended up the words on your tombstone, when you're dead, that those are the words people described you as at your funeral. Like, what would those words be? And I'll have you identify those. And then I have some simple tricks. Okay, once you know those words, now we need to get those words, because those are your like intentional words. That's who I want to be as a person words, right? Now what I want you to do, now that you have those words, I want you to set up reminders of those words everywhere, all the time. So what this means is maybe you write those 3 words on a Post-it note, and that goes on the mirror in the bathroom. Maybe that goes on a Post-it note and it's on the dashboard of your car or on the edge of your computer. That you see those words a lot in your life, right? Like a lot. Because when you see the word, it cues you and it makes you, the nice thing about the human brain is it is driven by attention, but it's also driven by judgment. And well, we don't like that, but it's true, right? So if we have this judgment machine up here, let's use it. So I like to put the words in front of me and ask, am I being true to that? I'll give you an example. Oh my gosh. One time in my life, my word, and by the way, do you think your words change at different parts of your life? Yeah, because like maybe you have a word that you need to focus on right now in your life. And at one point in my life, a word that was really important to me was patience. Okay? Patience was my word. And I set up some reminders to remind me of being patient. One of the reminders I encourage you to set up is what we call an alarm trigger. An alarm trigger means on your phone, so you pull out your phone, you can set up a timer on your phone or alarms on your phone. And I don't know if you know this, but if you have a smartphone, when you type in the time for the alarm, you can also set a label for the alarm. So when that alarm noise goes off on your phone, word or words pop up, right? A label, they call it. So what I do is on my phone, I set up an alarm. And the alarm for me goes off 2 to 3 times a day, depending on how I've set it up. And so, for example, I'd be walking through the day, and also my phone goes off, and I look down on it, and it says the word patient on it. Or it says all my 3 words, like patient, joyful, vibrant, right? All 3 words bzz, on my phone. 2 to 3 times a day. By the way, since 2007, I've done this. So 2 to 3 times a day, bzz, 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 there's my words. And one time, patience was one of my words on my list. And what had happened? Well, we had a very difficult 2 or 3 months of my life. I'd had a brain injury. I don't know if you guys know this story from my life, but I wrecked ATV, which is a 4-wheeler, when I was down in Mexico. I was riding out in the sands, kind of racing around, and wrecked the ATV. I rolled several times. I snapped my wrist, broke my ribs, threw my hip out, dislocated my shoulder. I thought I got away lucky. But I ended up with post-concussive syndrome, which is a head injury, traumatic brain injury. And one of the elements of that concussion for me and the result of it was I became very impatient. Like I was just like always hurrying, and I was like frustrated with people. They couldn't get, like, tell me, what are you saying? What are you saying? What are you saying? And for the first time, at that point of almost a decade with my wife, I started like getting like impatient with her. I'd like be like, come on, hurry up. Or I'd say, I like just be short with her. And that had never happened before. And then the accident. And so patient became a very aspirational word in my life, to say the least, because I didn't have it. And so I tell you all this background because one time what happens is I get in a fight with my wife, and I'm very impatient, and I'm walking away, and I'm pissed off. So I leave the house, I shut the door, and I go for a walk to cool off. And literally I shut the door, and what happens? My phone buzzes, the alarm goes off, bzz, 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 and it says, patience, right there in my face. And I was like, practice what you preach, Brendon. It's like, and I was like, you know what? I got it. I wasn't. So I turned around, I opened up the door, I went in to my wife, I said, honey, you know what? I have to apologize. I'm trying to be a more patient man. And I know I wasn't. And I'm sorry. And I didn't need to go walk it off. I didn't need her to apologize. I didn't need the situation to fix itself. I needed a word of intention to make me remember how to be. And so I'd love for you to do that today. I would love for you to identify 3 aspirational words of who you should be. And I would love for you to set them as an alarm trigger in your phone. Several times a day, let that thing go up. Bzz, and look down and go, am I being that? Am I being that? Am I being that? And over a period of time, guess what? You will course correct. Over a period of time, it's very easy to make you be more of who you are. The issue is you haven't had reminders, right? It's why it's so powerful to have like a coach, a life coach, a business coach. In our industry, our business, we call them certified high performance coaches. Why do people get coaches? Because a coach makes you look at yourself and reminds you of how to be better and how to be your best self. Right? A great spouse, a great partner. It's like the reason you're with other people is because sometimes they can be your accountability partner. Well, your phone can either be a weapon of mass distraction, or your phone could be something that delivers you a better you. And that's why I want you to set an alarm trigger. The second kind of trigger I set for it is like jewelry triggers. Like at all times, I'm wearing something. Sometimes I have a hat with my 3 words on it. I have shirts with my words on them. I have some shoes, like my workout shoes, on the bottom are my 3 words on my shoes. I have this bracelet that I have from my friends from My Intent, where you can just choose your word and you can put 1 word on your thing if you want, if it's like you have 1 defining word or multiple words. And so for me, like my defining words in my life came from my experience as a young man when I finally set big intentions in my life. And I said, you know what? After I'd faced my first accident, right? The first one I had when I was 19 years old. And I learned that at the end of our life, we're all going to ask whether we really lived our life, whether we loved, and whether we mattered. I realized that as a 19-year-old kid. You know, I got a little gift of mortality motivation. I learned we're all going to die. And what questions am I going to ask myself at the end to evaluate whether or not I'm happy with my life? I learned it was, did I live, did I love, did I matter? And so my Intent friends made me this bracelet that says, live, love, matter. And so I wear that as a reminder. Now, do I need the reminder? Do you need a reminder every day? Yes. Because isn't it true that you have fallen off your A game? Isn't it true that you've had weeks or months where you weren't your best self? Why? Probably because you neglected to set the intentions in the circumstances of your life. You became reactive, not intentional, and that cost you your wellness, your well-being, your relationships, your contributions. So you remember all this stuff, like I said in session number 1, this all ties together. So I'm telling you, if you can set reminders, whether it's Post-it notes, alarm triggers, or jewelry, or things that you wear or write, put it everywhere. Look at it often. Maybe it's in your journal. You look at it. It's in my high performance planner. For me, I look at it every week. I got to write down these things. Okay, got it. For me, I also set things like self-talk triggers. A self-talk trigger is, as an example, like when I walk through a door frame, I have a trigger. Every time I walk through a door into a new room, I say something to myself. So imagine like you worked all day. You're coming home with the kids or the spouse or just to your sanctuary, and you're going to walk into the front door of your house. What should you say to yourself when you walk into the front door of your house? Like write that down as an intention. Maybe you go to work each day. And maybe it's at your house, or maybe it's in a spare office, or maybe it's the kitchen at your house, or maybe you have like a real place you go to work. When you go to work, you walk through the entrance door, the door that now defines that you're going to go into work. What should you say to yourself? Like that kind of triggered self-talk, that keeps you on path. It keeps you like firing off good positivity in your life. For me, some of you all know this from my YouTube videos, because I talk about it once in a while on my YouTube show, is like when I walk into any door, any new room in my entire life, when I walked in the door of this place where we're filming right now, said the same thing. I always say it when I walk through a new door. I always say, I enter this space as a happy man ready to serve. Every time. Because I want to remind myself, I'm happy. I'm already good. I need nothing from the people here. I need nothing from the world. I feel grace and reverence for life. I've already been given the gift of this breath. I'm good. I enter this space happy. Because I don't want, you know what the opposite is? Entering the space needy. I don't want that. I entered the space a happy man ready to serve. That self-talk, ready to serve, reminds me, don't focus on yourself, Brendon. Like, notice other people. Appreciate other people. Take time with other people. Slow it down, man. Be here in a space of service, not a space for you, Brendon. And that like helps me be better as a leader, as a contributor, as a man. It's important to me. But think about how many rooms I could enter in, how many contexts and situations I could enter in without that intention, where I'm just reactive, where I can walk in and be like, who do I need to meet? What do I need here? What do I want here? Not that that's not bad to have clarity on, but that's not my driving force. So you get the idea, right? We're setting up triggers to speak to ourselves well, to cue intention in our life. Now that you know that, I can go a little faster the next 3. So the first one is really about seeking clarity about self. Who am I and who do I want to be in this situation? Okay? The second area that high performers have clarity on and actively seek consistently is who should they be socially? Meaning, how should they treat other people? Let me give you an example. There's one part of intention that says, who should I be, Brendon, as I enter this meeting with these other people, right? That's who should I be in this context. That's the first level of intention. The other level of clarity, though, is saying, how should I treat Sally in this meeting? Who should I be and how should I treat Jim here? Meaning they have intention for how they should socially interact with the single persons in front of them, right? So it's different than who am I, it's how should I be with this person? For example, when they're gonna go have a conversation with somebody they're in conflict with, they think, how should I treat that specific person? And they're intentional about it. Meaning they've anticipated that conversation, they've thought through it, they're thinking how to do well in that social interaction for that person, for that relationship. So it's specific to a relationship, not just specific to how they want to be. Does that make sense? They think about the relationship and how they need to treat the other person to positively impact that relationship. And I'm telling you, that's the opposite like, I think 95% of the people in the world, what they do is they just show up and they're like, how are you? What's up? And then they focus on themselves and they don't even see, appreciate, validate, cheer on the other persons at all. They haven't even thought about the other people. They're just focused on self. So a lot of people do have intention and clarity about themselves, but because they don't anticipate and have intention for their interaction with other people, they lose performance. They don't have great relationships, even if they have great clarity about themselves. Make sense? Remember I told you on day one, this is all about a holistic approach to your wellness and well-being. And one major area of improvement for everyone I've ever met, including myself, is to be more consistently intentional about how to treat other people individually, meet them where they're at, and positively impact that person. Have that intention, and your life changes. The third big area that they set intention about, and I love this one, is skill building. This is really cool. If you ask a high performer, hey, open up your calendar. Show me in your calendar times that you have blocked out for your learning or your personal growth or development, like where you're gonna get better at something. They're like, oh, I got piano practice right here. I'm taking this online course right here. I'm trying to get better at speaking here. I'm trying to develop my influence here. I'm trying to learn this technical thing there. Like, they're very specific. And here's the tell. If I sat you down and I said, tell me the 5 skills you're trying to develop right now. If you don't know what those are right now, I can predict, and I'm sorry to be a jerk, but I can predict with a phenomenal accuracy that you're underperforming in your career versus your peers. And again, that's not my opinion as a high performance coach. That's the data we have from High Performance Institute. People, literally the longer you take to answer the question of tell me the 5 skills you're trying to develop right now, the lower you get in performance. And a lot of people go, I don't know. I mean, look, we're in a situation where we have a literacy problem in the United States. Not literacy that people can't read, that they don't read. The average person reads maybe 1, maybe 2 books a whole year, and that's a problem. That's a huge problem. People aren't learning anymore. And if you're not learning, you're not being open. If you're not being open to new ideas and perspectives, you're becoming more closed, more myopic, more selfish. And it's a major challenge we have, and I know you feel that, and one of the reasons you're part of this community is because you're a person who really cares about the world, and I do too. And if you care about the world, you must care about learning. You must decide how can you contribute to the world by developing greater skills. I'll give you an example. There was a point in my career I had no clarity on this matter, because I didn't really know like exactly what I wanted to do, so I didn't really think about it. And then as I started thinking about what would draw meaning for me, which we'll talk about, I was like, you know what? I want to help more people. And you may or may not know this, but I'm doing this course right now extemporaneous, meaning I've got like notes in my head, but I'm talking to you like I'd talk to a coaching client, like as I'm teaching and training here. And I've been doing this a really long time, so I'm able to do that. But this might surprise you. I was mortified of this. Talking, for me, public speaking, terrified of. Like talking to a group of people, seeing a red button go on top of a camera, I'd freeze. I was a terrible communicator. But remember I told you I just wanted to be a writer? At some point I learned if I was going to be a successful writer, I'd have to learn how to communicate about the book so that people would buy it, so they would share about it. I had to learn how to become a better communicator. I learned to sell books, I'd have to get on stages and be in media and turn on video cameras. And so I set that as a skill. So here's my question. If you're going to make your greatest difference in the world, what are the next 5 skills you really need to deepen or create in your life? Like, what do you need to gain mastery on? Like, write down 5 areas. And then write down what's 3 steps I can take in each area to learn more about that. Could I read a book? Could you take a course? Could you get a mentor? Could you get a coach? Could you listen to podcasts or interviews? Like, how are you going to learn to develop that skill? Because if you have no plan to develop that skill won't develop, and you'll stay at the same level you are today. But one of the reasons high performers are happy is because they feel like they're skilling up, meaning they're progressing towards being able to make better contributions. And remember, contribution brings happiness. Contribution brings better performance. Contribution is directly tied to your sense of wellness and well-being. Got it? Last big area, number 4. They seek clarity by consistently asking, how can I contribute here in a way that makes me feel engaged and fulfilled? Meaning, they ask questions about how to be of service in a way that is meaningful to them. They're always asking, how can I do this in a way that's like fun for me? How can I do this in a way that's meaningful? How can I do this in a way that like I'll really enjoy it and be fulfilled from it? They could literally do the same tasks. Like a high performer and an underperformer can both have the task of wash dishes, right? One person's just gonna wash the dishes and bemoan it. The other person's like, how can I whistle while I work? Right? It's that old thing of carrying the pail and the water and carrying the logs, and 2 people can do it, but the Zen person is thinking, how can I take each step with intention and joy? They're carrying the same load, man, but they're carrying it differently. That's what high performers do. They say, how can I do this task in front of me and do it well, but do it in a way I enjoy it? So this whole session was really asking you to ask yourself questions. That's what seeking clarity is. The way that you seek clarity is you ask questions, right? So the next time you go into a networking event, I want you to go, who do I want to be in this situation? What's the 3 words that's going to define who I am today? Who in this situation, this networking situation, can I talk to and how should I interact with them to do it well? What's the skill I need to be developing over the course of this next couple hours with these people? How can I add value in the situation and enjoy the process and walk out tonight's networking function feeling fulfilled, feeling like this was a meaningful event for me? If you start asking those questions in the different contexts and situations of your life, guess what you are doing? You are laying the foundation to become a more intentional person. And when you lay the foundation to become a more intentional person, guess what? You become a less reactive person over time. And as a more intentional person, you'll be more congruent with who you want to be, you'll get more connection with other people, you'll contribute better and get that progress going, which will make you feel so much better about life. So seek clarity, my friends, and you can change your life. I hope you enjoyed this session. Do me a favor, tell us in the community, what are your 3 words? When I was talking about setting an intention and setting reminders around your house or on your phone or on your My Intent kind of bracelet, what are your 3 words that you're going to aspirationally grow into? Share that with us. I'd love to hear it. And you'll see all these people have different words that are defining who they want to be or how they want to live right now. It's super cool. I love collecting people's words. I know most of my clients' words. I know some of the biggest celebrity names in the world. I know their words because successful people are always living with intention. So please share it with us. And by sharing it, it kind of makes you accountable too, to try to grow into that person. I want to celebrate you again for being in this course. I know that this is a lot of work and you're thinking about your life and you're facing some tough stuff, but you're also, I hope, feeling my energy and my fire because I know you can improve your life. And I know that's why you joined this course. So I celebrate you for your hard work, for your diligence and your personal development, because it's by having this intention and this focus that you're going to improve day by day by day by day, and you will absolutely learn to gain mastery with your wellness.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this Commune Masterclass, then I think you'll love this video right here.
These three things in research that it helps in mental health with journaling. One, it organizes your thoughts. And as soon as you organize your thoughts,